We're all clear, but there'll be more. Echo 7, how's the transmission?
I just bypassed security. Transferring to R10 now.
Echo 2, we've got company. Let's make this quick.
Copy, Echo 9. R10, get ready for transmission. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Hoth Transmissions. Today we are going to be talking about the series finale of The Bad Batch. And this one's going to be a lot of fun because Sam and I have very different opinions on this one. So, without further ado, let's jump in. So, I'm going to start with you, Sam.
I don't know. I've watched it twice now, and the first time was a struggle. The second time made my feelings even stronger that I did not like this episode. I'm still trying to figure out whether it's just because we had talked up about our sort of perfect endings, or whether it was just too much of a cliche. Like, you know, that there was there were just moments in there that I were like, oh cool, this is gonna look so good, and then like nothing happened. And it was just not for not only a season finale, for a season finale, it whimpered. But I think, you know, again, this season started so strong, and then it progressively got worse, and this was it. You know, it whimpered to the finish line.
Okay, all right, that's a fair take. Like, I know we built up a lot of like ideas of how we thought things were going to go, and I'm okay with being wrong because I did like how this kind of went. But I actually do agree with you. It was kind of a cliche ending, and there was moments where you expected certain characters to die because you could just see the wear and tear that were on them, the damage that they've taken, and then all of a sudden they got another burst of energy and make it out of the situation.
Yeah, it was almost like it was a video game. You know, you find that extra health pack or something, and all of a sudden you're back to normal.
Yeah, because
you know,
even Hunter, he got shot and then a bunch of debris fell on him. I was like, okay, that's the end of Hunter. I'm like, cool. Oh nope, never mind, he's still alive. Oh, Rucker's got this big gash on his chest from fighting this beast, so it's weighing him down, and all this extra energy is just gonna be his last breath. And then all of a sudden he just picks up a trooper and slams him into a computer terminal. And then even with Echo, he got in so many situations where he had guns pointed at him, and you're just like, okay, well, this sucks. He's about to die, but nope, Wrecker comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I enjoyed all the visuals on this episode, and I enjoyed a lot of like the fighting scenes. So I know like how I'm talking about like those scenes. I still think those scenes were like really cool.
I think, I mean, yeah, the visuals, some of the visuals, I'm gonna say, were pretty cool. You know, the sort of similarity. That's the word I was trying to find between you know, where the Bad Batch ended up and where they started. You know, they did the aerial shots of the two, and they looked very similar. And I enjoyed that. It was sort of like very symbolic of, yeah, you've been through hell here, but this is where you find peace.
Yeah.
But apart from that, that one bit, like even the shadow clones having helmets that had, you know, were very, it was just too reminiscent of the Bad Batch. It was like the anti-Bad Batch. And I was like, that was a stretch too far again for me. I was like, you know, they could have just had the same outfits and still been awesome looking.
Like the normal assassins that we've been seeing throughout the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And that brings a question, because Hemlock had like these secret clones. Was it like Moff Gideon, or were those his clones? Because I didn't really get a good look at the faces.
I
Or
don't
were they
know.
actual clones?
I think they were actual clones because of the whole, like, they tried to do that conditioning to Crosshair.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, just on the sort of more positive again, I'm glad that Crosshair didn't turn into one of them, which, was is what I heavily thought would happen.
Yeah, I actually made some points on that. It's like, hey, Sam, I guess you were wrong.
Yeah. Guess whose theories were all wrong?
Both of ours, mainly.
I am, like like with yourself, I am glad that I was wrong about them, but at the same time, I feel
they got off too easy.
Yeah, like the clone, the bad, clone era is done. The Bad Batch should have really, gone out with a bang, which is what they would have loved, instead of, being watered down. And it was just very meh. And then
because a lot of the characters that died happen to be the clones that they actually got out of prison. So it's like, okay, you're doing all this to save these clones, only for them to die for you.
Yeah. And there was one character that I completely forgot was in this series or in this season. Like, we had them early on in the season, and then they got locked away. But I forgot.
Nala Se.
Yeah. That's the one. Like, I forgot that she was there because she wasn't mentioned for so long, and it was like, oh, right, okay, then she exists still. Oh wait.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I'm like, well, why are we going to focus on her in the prison? I mean, Crosshair was a little bit different in the beginning of the season because Omega was going over to see him.
Yeah.
But Nala Se, she's just kind of a side character, not like a character that, okay, how interesting is her part going to be sitting in prison? Not that necessary, unless Hemlock goes to talk to her about something, which he's got a car to do that anyways, or Emery.
Yeah, but I think, like, the fact that Nala Se was quite a pivotal character at the beginning of this season, to then be relegated to the sidelines massively, to then be sort of reintroduced in such a pitiful way. I think if I was to write it, because I'm a world-class famous writer, apparently, that knows how to write scripts and stuff. I've got no idea. I would have it, that Nala Se would still be more pivotal in the entire season, in the lead up to this one moment in the finale.
I would disagree, though.
Yeah,
I think her moment here was very pivotal. I think it was like a very key point for her character.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would keep her moment in this episode, but I would just have her more in the previous ones. Looking back at how, she just kind of reappeared in this one. There could have been ways that, Omega would still be in the same facility as Nala Se, but Nala Se could be forced more so to help with Emery,
rather than just being tossed into a cell.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's where, because I think Emery's character arc, her sudden change was too quick as well. And I think, if Nala Se was sort of the voice in the back of her head, that little whisper in her ear, throughout the season, I think that would have been, again, a better sort of way than in this episode. We would have Emery doing what she does with Echo, and Nala Se doing what she did, the self-sacrifice play.
Well, I mean, I would argue that Emery was a good character from the beginning because she did give Omega back the doll and was doing what she could to keep her comfortable there. But at the same time, had a mission because good soldiers follow orders. And it's not until Omega leaves or runs away and Omega stuns her to get her to start thinking because they had their little speech. And then Emery did go see Nala Se about the children and began questioning there. And so by the time she gets to Echo, she's like, yeah, this place ain't what it should be. It's like, it's very questionable.
Yeah. I mean, I get that, and it's a hard one. Like for me personally, and as you quite know because I've said it many times, going into the Bad Batch initially, I hated it, and then the beginning of this season came out, and it was like super strong points. Like the first few episodes were amazing, and then it just declined, and it, to get to this point for a season finale, it was like, okay, so we've still got some questions that need answering. We've got characters that we need to wrap up their storylines, and parts of it felt rushed to me. Like, in all honesty, the Nala Se part, then I would happily have had a little bit more of that.
Okay.
To again,
same with the Zilla Beast.
Yeah, because that was just a random inclusion to me. It was at the end of the previous episode.
But they made it seem like it was going to be a pivotal point, which, I mean, technically it breaking free and causing all this chaos was a pivotal point for the Bad Batch to succeed in what they did. But it's like, okay, the Zilla Beast goes off into the forest. Okay. Well, yeah, that's the end of that story.
Yeah, it's like, what more do you want? Oh, there is no more. Okay. So that felt forced. And that's something that I don't like seeing in anything that I watch. I don't want it to be forced. I don't want it to be this random plot point that's just there for plot armor. If it's there for a reason. Again, kind of with like the Nala Se part, if they had included the Zilla Beast, even like 2-3 episodes prior, just to know that it was properly there, I would have no issues. Like, it would make more sense. But the fact that it was just, oh, here's this thing. Next episode, oh, the thing's got out. Okay.
I do find it funny that everybody in the Bad Batch is like, yep, this is Omega's doing.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good line. It was like, Omega. Just, okay.
That's either Echo's work or Omega's work. Omega.
Yeah, that did make me sort of smile. But again, having one-off lines like that compared to the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Just, like for me, don't get me wrong, if people enjoyed it, I'm happy for them to enjoy it. For me, it just didn't feel right. It just wasn't. I'm not even going to say that my ending would have been better where everybody dies, but at the same time, at least having one of the main characters sacrifice themselves in a better way would have had a better payoff. I mean, Crosshair, like, what was that about? Like,
what do you mean?
The hand.
Well, I mean, this is what I put in my notes. At least his hand's not going to hurt anymore.
I was thinking that exact thing, but at the same time, it's like, one. I mean, I got a bit annoyed by the fact that you don't see that, and I know it sounds quite grim, but we also see people having, being shot multiple times. So,
I mean, what is Star Wars without seeing a limb being chopped off or something?
Exactly, and that's what I don't get. The Shadow clone could have easily just taken Crosshair out then and there properly, but no, he went for the hand. Like, this isn't some Thanos thing here where you should have gone for the head. This is like, you've got one of the main characters that is could easily probably take you out by shooting you from a distance. You cut off his hand. As we see later on, he's still got another hand. He can still sharpshoot. That was just like, to me, it just felt wrong in the way that, one, you don't see it and you don't feel the pain from it. So, you're watching this character, and then next thing you know, he's got no hand. And
maybe it's supposed to be like, you're that character, hand gets chopped off and it blacks out, so from the pain. That's kind of how I took it. It's like, okay, as soon as it hit his hand, he just blacked out.
See, I don't think he would, though. That's only my interpretation. But when you've got characters like Wrecker that should have also died by the injuries that he received, but he's still going. I don't think a hand being cut off, especially if it was like more of the wrist or more of the arm.
Yeah, but it was like right there on the wrist, clean cut.
Yeah, and it was a clean cut. So it was cauterized straight away because laser swords.
Yeah.
So the pain element, there would be pain, but I mean, Anakin, when he had his arm cut off by Dooku,
one would argue he's a Jedi, though.
I mean, that's a bit of a strenuous link. I mean, the clones are bred for one purpose.
No, you're right. No, I totally. And these guys are supposed to be a lot tougher than normal clones, anyways.
Yeah, and so I felt like that was a waste because, I thought, great, he's lost a limb. We're gonna see him then struggle to shoot, and
or put a prosthetic on,
or that, But there was nothing. There was just him being told to shoot with his other hand, and he did it perfectly. Like, there was no when they were on the bridge. So I'm jumping ahead. But when Hunter and Crosshair were on the bridge and Omega was handcuffed to Hemlock, I really thought at that point that Omega would be shot by accident, obviously, because Crosshair can't apparently shoot with his other hand. But it was,
and he was second guessing himself too.
Yeah, but it was literally just a perfect shot, and I was kind of like, well, what was the point?
Well, I mean, look at it this way: if Crosshair can't be Crosshair if he can only shoot with one hand. If he didn't train with the other, I wouldn't really call him much of a sharpshooter.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, for him to lose a hand,
not a big deal.
Yeah, it
shouldn't be.
For the head.
Well, I mean, he had a blaster. It wasn't really like a sniper, though, either. So less accuracy.
Less accuracy, but still, like, it's his kind of job to be...
No, true. Precise.
It's in his name, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I feel like, because before we started recording this, and when we was messaging, you said that you're going to try and convince me. I feel like I'm convincing you it was actually a bad ending. And I'm sorry.
No, I still like the ending. I'm not going to lie, but I definitely see your points.
Yeah. And it was just too.
Well, let's put it this way. Okay, so Crosshair probably wasn't confident. Like, as close as they were, because they're thinking, I mean, you gotta remember, they shoot Hemlock in the head, he falls off, there goes Omega too. So they couldn't really just go for the head. And so I think it was just an easier shot for when Omega just stabs Hemlock in the leg and throws her hand up. It's like, okay, break the chains, and then they shot him multiple times, then he was done.
But even then, shooting a chain on a pair of handcuffs, that's like
shooting womp rats in Beggar's Canyon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you're flying a T-16 all over again. It was just too circumstantial that, for a few seconds he doubted himself and then still hit the target spot on.
So what I'm hearing is you want a Game of Thrones version of clones.
Yeah. Yeah, let's
I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, a lot of these characters had plot armor, and you're building out these 3 seasons of these characters, wondering what's going to happen. Like, we definitely did lose Tech, because Crosshair even said Clone Force 99 died with Tech. So
yeah,
we're not the same team anymore.
I'll concede to that, even though there was no body, Tech's gone. But I mean, just
Crosshair believes it.
Yeah, so this scene on the bridge,
and he's really spot on.
Yeah, this scene on the bridge, it could have played out that Omega stabs Hemlock in the leg. It looks like it's going to play out the same way. Crosshair misses and kills Hemlock, and Omega's then holding on with one hand to
off the side of the bridge.
And you've got Hunter and Crosshair then legging it to try and grab Omega to stop her from falling to her death. I think that would have been.
And they could have made it more realistic if they were running in the rain. They're sitting there struggling to run and slipping.
Yeah, but that shows that Crosshair isn't as good with his other hand.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, it was just
the only flaw with that, though, is I don't think Omega could hold the body weight of Hemlock, especially in the rain. I think as soon as she tried to grip, she'd probably slip because she just wouldn't be able to hold the weight.
I mean, we're talking of like extra plot armor here, but to make sort of one character. But it could be that stereotypical movie trope where the other good guys get to them just in time before they let go.
Yeah.
And I mean, they did it in one of the Star Trek movies where
the ship's go on Star Trek again.
I'm actually digging this, and I like my Star Trek as well.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's that same sort of thing where they fall off something and then start falling, but in the nick of time, someone else is there to catch them. And I feel like that would have been a better payoff in this, instead of a guy that's lost his hand, that's not confident about shooting, hitting the mark straight away.
I kind of feel like Hunter should have been the one to take the hit. I know he's no Crosshair, but I mean, he's still pretty accurate with his shots. I feel like he would have been in like that type of shot too. Yeah, but I think this is just them trying to redeem Crosshair to show that he's still good at what he does, even without having one hand.
Yeah, I found that moment to be, well, I mean, I've ranted about it for
yeah. For a while. I think we understand.
yeah. Next one then. Where do you want to lead with this? Because,
well, I mean, let's go back to them all getting captured. Like, there's so many instances where you thought these characters were going to die. And I do think that there were actually some really good lines in this episode. One of them being when Omega is escaping with the children. These kids, all they know is just this one room that they're in, doing tested, playing these little games, getting a needle jabbed in their hand, and their whole little escape. Again, plot armor, a little too convenient. But I mean, Omega did have the skills. She's like, okay, if we can take over this droid, then this might give us the opportunity we need to be able to go through the wall and do our thing. And I liked that they outsmarted this. I forget her name, but they outsmarted their supervisor, and even though she's like, this droid is being too lenient on you guys, and then she gets stabbed in the back by the droid. I was like, ha, well done. But I figured there'd be more troopers with her. I really feel like she'd at least have one trooper with her.
I mean,
I know that the whole
especially-
facility is in such disarray, but I feel they would still keep that place secure because that's the goal of the Bad Batch to get to.
Yeah, and you know, Hemlock's not an idiot. He should have sent more troopers because they, that that's what, and he knew that that's what the Bad Batch were there for. He doesn't necessarily know that they're fully alive, but still, if
I mean, it goes back to Palpatine in Return of the Jedi. Your confidence in your friends is your weakness. And I feel Hemlock was just overconfident in his abilities.
Yeah.
And trying to take a step ahead from them, because even when he was telling Rampart, he's like, you fail to understand how clones think. He's like, I knew they were going to come here eventually. But he wasn't anticipating the Zilla Beast being released. He didn't anticipate Omega being who she is. And not to mention Rampart doing his thing, and then not even knowing Echo was running around the base dressed as one of his stormtroopers. And so, yes, a very smart man, but also very overconfident that he oversees such simple things. Because he definitely was able to take down the Bad Batch team because he put them in those pods.
Yeah.
But he didn't realize about the others. And that's why I love when Tarkin called. He was like, what's going on at your base? We're receiving a lot of information. Zilla Beast is gone. Your facility's on fire. You're being infiltrated. What's going on here? And the Emperor's not pleased. So I'll be there shortly to take over or get things back in order.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of a positive way that some of the characters behaved in this, and I mean, you're completely right about what you just said in the way that Hemlock. I think Hemlock's character stayed the same from
That's what I liked about him.
Yeah, he didn't progress. He was always this cocky,
cold-hearted man.
Yeah,
and he even taunts Rampart in prison.
Yeah, it's kind of like he felt superior to everybody because he was in charge of the super top secret mission.
Mm-hmm. Even above Tarkin. Yeah, Tarkin knows about the facility, so I'm just very curious of why he doesn't know what's going on there. That's the only thing that had me confused.
That confused me as well. Even on a second watch, I was like, how does he know that?
Because Tarkin was in one of the previous episodes, and he was like, okay, what's going on here? And Hemlock's like, I'm in charge of the secret. Like, I can't even tell you, blah, blah. But then Tarkin's like, oh, well, I'm coming over to take over because you pissed off the Emperor.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, Tarkin's very important to Palpatine, but not enough to know about this. Maybe it's not necessary for him to know, but I feel like Tarkin's been there with Palpatine since even the Clone Wars. That he should be higher up than Hemlock and have security clearance for this, but I mean, at least he knows about the place, I guess.
But that does raise the question as to what does Tarkin think it is? Like, it's not just a training facility. I mean, he went there because we see Tarkin on Tantus at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, where's Hemlock? Oh, he's dead. Well, divert all funding to this project, to a better project, let's just say.
Yeah, Project Stardust.
Yeah, I liked that callback, though. I'm just going to say, but maybe it was like just different project names, because obviously Project Stardust, that we know from obviously other Star Wars things that it's the Death Star, but it's just a code name, and maybe Tarkin knew what the code name was, but not what it entailed.
Okay, so Project Necromancer, that's probably all he knew, but not exactly Palpatine's rule with it.
Yeah, so maybe I'm trying to think of ways that I can potentially save some part of this episode for myself. I think maybe
Project Necromancer. That doesn't sound good, or I don't like the sound of that.
But at the same time, it doesn't concern him because it's not his jurisdiction, whereas Project Stardust was.
No, I know, that's what I was saying. It's like Echo's comment when he heard Project Necromancer. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, like this, we went into this episode and we got more questions than answers, and I do feel a lot of things did get tied up, and it just gave us a fun little adventure with these characters, like Omega running off with the kids and being able to see her growth because they're following the Zilla Beast out of the facility. She's like, okay, well, the Zilla Beast went this way, and you got SP432, I think that's his name, is sitting there going, do we really have to go up there? Like, I'm scared of heights. And they give you a nice little moment, nice little message saying, well, okay, well, we got Wrecker. He's the strongest person she knows, but just focus on the next step and don't focus below you. And so that's kind of a cool little life lesson. It's always look ahead and don't never look behind you, always look ahead. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a cool little message.
Okay, I'm gonna say something that if you had asked me before season 3 came out, I would honestly never have said this. I think the strongest character in this episode with a specific arc was Omega.
Mm-hmm. I think this whole season was a good arc for her.
I mean, I'm glad I'm sat down to say that because, I hated her character in season 1 and 2. I could not stand her at all. She was this whiny kid that was getting everyone into trouble. And I mean, there's parallels to that in this story arc, in this season, especially the latter half of it. But as a character, she has matured, she's grown, she's able to stay level-headed and help others, like, exactly like you've just said with the I'm afraid of heights. Well, one step at a time, just don't look back, don't look down, just keep going. And for me, I was like, okay, still there's all the heavy plot armor, but she was the one character that
drew the most out of all of them.
Yeah. And
because she could have easily left with the kids, but she's like, no, I'm staying with Echo. We're going to go get the team out.
Yeah. I still hated the ending, but we'll get into that. But
yeah.
I'm she made the right choices for, I think for her character development, because she has had the most development in this season.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it sort of culminates. And I do wish, and again, it sounds morbid because let's talk about Sam liking Order 66 and killing kids. I think she should have been the one to sort of sacrifice herself as well to stop Project Necromancer becoming a full-on thing.
See, this is my thing. Oh, no, finish your thought. No, sorry.
No, that's basically my thought, John.
Well, I agree with you on that, is because when Echo gave Emery the coordinates, he's like, take the kids here, we're staying here. I was like, okay, mission accomplished. They played the hero, got the kids out. Now it's time to wrap everything up here, even if we have to destroy everything with ourselves. And that's where I thought it was going. because it looked like there's like, okay, that's our only way out. So this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
Because even save it on the clone troopers, like I figured that would have been like another mission accomplished. It's like, okay, well, we're sacrificing ourselves to save our brothers, but more of them died than the plot armor heroes.
Yeah.
Because they get trapped in pods, and Hemlock goes on his thing. It's like, okay, if you guys survive, I've changed my methods. It didn't work on Crosshair before, but this time it will, and you guys won't even be able to break out of it. So forget having a chip in your head. This is going to be more effective. And am I the only person that thought this when Hemlock had Omega and he's talking about how he succeeded and how everybody's failed? And then Omega says, well, you forget, we have him. Did you get the Tony Stark, well, we have a Hulk reference? Or is that just me?
No, I got that. To me, it felt very much like, the James Bond villain goes through and basically like most movies now, where the bad guy will just tell his plan and then the good guy's going to win. But yeah, especially when it was this, and it's like, well, we've got him. It's like, we have a Hulk. And especially because of the size of the character as well, it was just like, really?
No, exactly. That's why I said, I'm like, why do they have to try and rewrite quotes all the time?
Yeah.
I did find it funny, though. And that was like the pivotal point for Hemlock, because he's like, oh, the facility is dead or destroyed. He's like, well, okay, well, I still got you. She's like, well, we got him. So what you gonna do about it?
Even then, I
And
think
then
that would have been a good time for Wrecker to die. I mean, he jumped out of a window and slammed himself down as well, and he just didn't die. Like, I know it sounds like a Sam wants a happier ending with everybody dying cliche, but it was like, moments like that
I just
didn't work.
It's not so much that we want everybody to die. It's just it makes the win more meaningful, I think.
It would have been very much like Rogue One, where they won but they lost. And I think, what with everything that the Bad Batch has gone through, to have them going out in such a spectacular way that this project, seemingly ends, because we know it comes back later on, but much later on. But to have, each character doing what they do best and dying in the way that fits them, I think, is much better. It kind of, I look back at Tech's death and I'm like, yeah, he died, but it was kind of a meaningless death. Like, it wasn't fitting for the character. So to have, Wrecker, say, jumping out of that window to save everybody else, I think that would have been a good time for him to finally die, but by saving everyone else.
Yeah, because like he was just laying there and they're talking to him, and his eyes were half open, and he was kind of just like looked like he was done.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he doesn't go out to the bridge. And am I the only one that felt bad for Hunter here? I know we had a whole season with Omega and Crosshair bonding, but I mean, from the start, Hunter was the one looking after her and trying to be the father figure for her. And they get saved. So who's the first person she hugs? Crosshair. And then Hunter kind of looked like thrown back. He's like, I mean, I know she then throws her other arm around him, but the first person she goes to is Crosshair. I kind of felt bad for Hunter.
I mean,
I understand why. I mean, this whole season makes sense because of their bond, but
Yeah, it was the yin and yang, and Crosshair going back to somewhere that he didn't want to go to. But I've still got one more problem with that particular scene as well, is that Omega, because of their bond, should have said, "Oh no, what happened to your hand?" Just a little line like that instead of them just walking off.
It's like the whole Force Awakens thing where Chewie comes back and doesn't even hug Leia.
Yeah,
Like that whole missed opportunity right there. Like something simple as that should have been a thing.
yeah.
But here,
And I mean,
not so much.
because we talked about the runtime of this episode and what we thought it could be. I mean, I'm glad that we was right on that theory that it was going to be a longer episode.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we got one right.
Yay!
And technically, I was right too. Crosshair left with Omega.
Yes.
But granted, 2 other characters or 3 other characters.
Yeah.
As well, but
I will concede to that, and
But my main theory is that they're all going to die except for those 2. So that's where I was wrong.
Yeah. But I think looking back at the episode again, you've got Nala say putting an end to kind of what she started, which
I liked that whole interaction with her and Rampart. Like, Rampart got what he deserved.
I hated the interaction for the most part, but he did get what he deserved. It was kind of like it was karma, essentially. And Nala say being the one that did the self-sacrifice play, even though I forgot that she was a character until she reappeared, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I completely get what the reasoning behind it. It was just like, I wish that there was a better ending for Rampart. Hemlock's death, it was
satisfying,
but satisfying, because he was. I still would have actually enjoyed it if the Zelo Beast just came up out of nowhere and ate him as he was falling down.
That would actually be pretty funny, but I don't think it'd be. And they could have done it in a very serious manner to make it meaningful.
Yeah,
but again, Omega is still attached to Hemlock at that point, so there goes Omega flying off with him.
Well, I mean, even if Crosshair succeeded in shooting the handcuff link, and maybe Hunter takes one shot at Hemlock gets hit, slips because the bridge is wet, and as he's falling down, that's when the Beast comes up and it's just like.
Or they could have already had the Zilla Beast under there, because they were pretty high up, and so the Zilla Beast can't climb up there, and so then Hemlock falls to his death right into the Zilla Beast. That way, it doesn't come out of nowhere like a random scene, but like it's just adding more tension for the whole interaction, because Hemlock blocking out, going, okay, I'm calling my ship, and then all of a sudden you see both engines blown out, and the ship. I thought actually the visuals on that was actually really beautiful, just watching that ship slowly go down and just crash, and then just the annoyance in Hemlock's face is like, okay, this is a setback.
Yeah, it's like, what's plan B?
I had no plan B. I'm too confident in my abilities that I don't account for these things.
Yeah.
Because even his commando gets shot down and falls off the bridge. And so it's just him and Omega, and she's like, well, I'm going to put a gun to Omega's head, even though you guys know I'm not going to shoot her. And so it was a weak play on his part. So obviously he had no plan. That was his only plan, and he wouldn't even do it because he knows how important she is to him.
Yeah, and this is another thing that actually really annoys me about not only this episode, but this entire season, is why is Omega the only one with blood that is compatible with like
Who
a
knows?
high
Boba Fett could have. Maybe just because she's unaltered. Every other clone is. So I'm wondering if they did the same test on Boba, it might come out the same as Omega, just because they're unaltered.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I could think of. And I'm thinking they don't even know about Boba.
I mean, they would have known.
I don't know. He never really had much interaction with Boba. Was always associated with the bounty hunters, and I'm not even sure how much Palpatine knew about Boba existing at that point either.
You mean this all-powerful guy that has planned his own resurrection?
Because he's so strong on the Force, he sees the future. Like, yes, that guy.
That can create life out of basically nothing. Can't find another person that, or another being that has a high M count.
I mean, you got to look at it this way. He's hiring bounty hunters to find these children. So, I mean, maybe he saw the future enough, but he didn't see exactly every little detail to it. He just knows he's going to succeed at some point. And to him, maybe Omega's the only thing that he had in his hands that he could think of, but the Force isn't exactly showing him everything else that's a possibility. So that's why he's just keeping hunting for these children, so that eventually one will do what he foresaw. Because he even told Luke, because even when he was fighting Luke, or well, not fighting Luke, but when he had Luke in his presence, he's sitting here saying, he's like, I foresaw all this. Like, you guys are going to fail this and this. And then next thing you know, Palpatine falls down a shaft and the rebellion wins. So, I mean, all powerful, yes, but not all seeing. Back to Rampart, I personally liked what was going on there, because Hemlock went to him in his cell, basically taunting him and telling him, is like, yeah, you're expendable, I'm not. And that gets Rampart thinking, because even in the Force before, in the episode prior, we have him talking to Crosshair saying, you and I are the same. And Crosshair's like, no, I've got friends, you don't. And he's like, well, you're like me. You're only out for yourself. And this episode showed the difference between the two. Rampart was always thinking about himself. They get saved with the clones, and he's like, no, I just want to leave. I don't want to help you guys or your friends. He's like, I want to get out of here. And then he overhears Omega talking to Nala Se, and he's like, okay, well, this sounds really important. I really want to know what Hemlock's talking about, because maybe if I have it, then this is my ticket out of being captured again. And Nala Se is like, no, this needs to be destroyed. And so she already knew where this was going to go. And so I thought it suited him, because you look at it for yourself, you're only going to ruin yourself.
Yeah, I think it's just too imperialistic. You know, we've seen other Imperials that are higher up, high up in the chain of command, that are very much the same. You know, we've seen it in Andor. We've seen it in A New Hope, and Empire, and Return of the Jedi. It just felt like, okay, so he's going to do what basically every other high up person in the Empire would do, and that's look out for yourself. It just reminded me of the Andor quote, where it's, about being fat, in the sense of with power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, it could have gone, such a different way, but it was just him being selfish, which is, it's what the Empire is. But I think, again, because it's the finale of the series, it could have been better. Like, we got
a happy ending.
which was also terrible. I mean, no, I mean, you know, one part of me is like, I have to remember that this is more aimed at kids. So having, you know, we've had the dark scene of Crosshair getting his hand cut off, even though we don't see it, and we had the scene of Hemlock being shot off a bridge.
Yeah.
We've had the scene of Nala Se blowing herself up to destroy the facility. The happy ending, I
And that no one said Tarkin had.
Well, yeah. You know, but I just thought it was it was too much of a everybody lives cliche, especially considering what they went through. And the fact that they were so trusting of Emery as well.
No, yeah, that
it took Hunter. I know that the Bad Batch are, in air quotes, brothers, but it took Hunter a good couple of episodes to even want to be in the same location as Crosshair.
Yeah.
And yet they've got this clone that's tortured kids, and they're perfectly fine.
Well, to be fair, she didn't really want to torture the children. That's just what she had to do. And then she realized, oh, this is wrong. Why are we doing this? And now I have a chance to help rather than destroy these children.
But by the same logic, that's exactly what Crosshair did. And maybe it was more the fact that, you know, the Bad Batch were meant to be brothers in you know, a bigger sense. But I
think it's because they knew him personally. Emery is kind of a wild card.
Yeah, I still think, though, you know, she was quite high up in that facility in the chain of command. I think it was just too easy to trust
I just think with Crosshair, it was more of the effect of your brother betraying you. And that's what Hunter was really struggling with. It's like, you betrayed us and did all this stuff, so it's going to make it hard to forgive you now. And if it wasn't for Omega, it might have taken longer.
Yeah, that you know, that's a valid point, and I can see it from that point of view.
Because that's even what Echo said. Like, when he saw Emery, he's like, Omega has said a lot of things about you. I hope she's right. It's the only reason I'm trusting you is because of Omega. Like, Echo didn't even want to trust her, but Omega got in his ear. And he's like, okay, I'm not going to trust you fully, but I'm going to keep an eye on you. And then she ends up proving his trust correct. Because even at the end, Echo is talking to her saying, hey, some of the stuff that you know about Senator Chuchu would really find it interesting. She's like, I've done a lot of bad things, so I'll do whatever I can to make it up. Because I mean, ultimately, she redeemed her or redefined herself. I think that's going to be our new term now. These characters aren't redeemed; they've just taken a chance to redefine themselves and not be remembered for who they were, but for what they do next.
Somewhere, Fluffy is feeling what we're saying and just
I know
being all like Yoda when the Jedi are being wiped out, just falling to her knees. But I mean, you know, the redefining the character. Yeah, I just think the characters were just too quick to forgive. And I mean, obviously, you know, the Bad Batch and Omega's main goal was to get the kids to safety.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the best one to pilot a ship? An adult.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can kind of see that part playing out fine. It's just then
my point is, if Emery was going to betray them, why would she have helped Echo so much to get to that point? If you can't trust her at that point, then
Maybe
not
to
much chance of you guys trusting her in the future. Because she could have just taken the kids anywhere. She didn't have to go take them to the coordinates. And that was a bet that Echo was counting on, is that she would actually be true to who she said she was.
Yeah, I think, like, you could have these sort of redeeming. I'm going to use that word for this instance. In the previous episode where she starts helping Echo, and then, but it could just all be a ploy. It's a trap.
No, but I mean, we got to, like, what was it? What was the title of the episode where we thought it was Crosshairs, like the identity crisis?
Yes.
Like, we got a whole episode on her. So that's why I don't feel like it was very sudden, because we had a whole episode of her questioning. And she even went to Nala saying, what are we doing here? Why are these kids here? Like, it's like Omega, yes, because she's a clone. So it's a little different. But now we're dealing with people that aren't clones. And it becomes a lot more questionable. And so I think that was her turning point for her character, because that's when she started questioning the reality of things instead of good soldiers follow orders.
Yeah, okay. I'll concede the point on this one, definitely. I'm still not going to say I liked the episode, but
no,
I
mean, I definitely see your points, but I do see that we did get some character development on certain characters, like Omega and Emery. I think had the biggest character developments this season. The Bad Batch, I'm gonna say not much on them, because they're already trained and they're already thinking a certain way. Like, there's really nothing you could really change about those characters, because they did everything that even Hemlock said they're going to come back for. And Echo's like, we're brothers, we don't leave each other behind. So very predictable that they're going to go and save the clones at the risk of their own life. Omega and Emery, I mean, Crosshair did get a character change this season too, but I mean, he's been, I'd say all 3 seasons has been him trying to find out exactly where he fits in.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why we thought it would be, the identity crisis episode would have been about Crosshair. Looking back, I'm glad it wasn't, because we have had up until that point 2.5 seasons of
him having an identity crisis.
Yeah. So to have an entire episode of him having an identity crisis is kind of like every other episode that he's been in up until that point. I'm good, but a good soldier follows orders, so I'm going to follow the Empire. I don't like what the Empire's really doing, so I'm going to... It's like, okay. So I am glad that in this season there wasn't much character growth, apart from the becoming the mirror to Omega.
But Wrecker and Hunter, I'd argue they stayed the same. They did exactly what they would have always done.
Yeah,
because all 3 seasons, I don't really see them any different than they were in the beginning, other than just trying to be mercenaries and making their way through the galaxy.
I like the reference, by the way. I think Hunter was kind of forced into the more fatherly figure, but I think when we saw them in the Clone Wars to how we see them now, it's like, and this is what turned me off of the Bad Batch in the first place, was you had these defective clones that were just badass, and then we see them chasing after a kid who's got them into trouble. It's like, that's not how they were in the Clone Wars. And I know Order 66 happened and everything changed for them, but at the same time, like, they could have still been badass without the inclusion of Omega as such. or even with
Yeah,
Omega then.
I will have to say the whole Omega edition kind of did ruin what could have been a great series.
Yeah.
Not saying I hate Omega. I do like the 3 seasons of her character development, but I think if they didn't go that route, we probably would have seen a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think like if it could be redone, maybe having the first season maybe into season 2 with the Bad Batch just being
Causing
awesome.
havoc on the Empire, being like that little cell group that just goes in and blows stuff up, and it's like the Empire's like, why aren't we catching these guys? Why are they keep doing this? Blah blah. Who are they?
Yeah.
Kind of like the Phoenix Squad in Rebels.
Yeah, and then maybe partway through season 2, have Omega, the inclusion of Omega then, and then season
Like they come
3.
upon a facility, yeah.
Yeah, I just think
Then we learn about Project Necromancer.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways that it could have played out, and again, I think that's why I didn't like the
Ending.
concept of the season to start with, and then the ending.
Oh yeah,
which was very much like, okay, so they survived. Okay,
but I mean, it's kind of heartwarming. They get to grow older. They get the peaceful life they've been seeking for all 3 seasons. Like that's all they ever wanted, was just to find a place where they could settle and live out the rest of their lives. And we don't really see too much of Crosshair and Wrecker in the old, because we see Hunter old, but we don't see the other 2. And I'm assuming they might have got the ending you wanted, where they die in the end. Maybe not the way you wanted them to.
Until I see the body, there's no proof. No,
so I got the assumption that Hunter was the only one alive.
I just felt like it was more Crosshair and Wrecker were just asleep.
Because she woke up early. Hunter's he's a tracker, so he's not going to be surprised.
Yeah, Hunter knew kind of what Omega would be doing eventually.
It was cool to see her older. That I do like the idea she didn't become a Jedi, and she just kind of grew up. And I like the idea that she's like, no, this is what I was born to do. I'm going to join the rebellion.
Not going to lie, I'm glad they didn't go down the Omega as a Jedi route. And I know that we've said that before when more reveals were made in previous episodes. But
at this point, it would have ruined Luke's arc if she was the other Jedi in the rebellion. It's like, okay, why do we need Luke?
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind, we've got Ahsoka.
Who's not part of the rebellion, though. She was, as far as we know, she was just off doing her own thing, trying to find Ezra.
But she was still around, though. I mean, so to have more and more Jedi being introduced.
Because we do have Cal Kestis doing his thing.
Yeah. So
and then you got these 3 Jedi children that are now being implemented into families.
Yeah, I'm genuinely glad that there was no. Oh, by the way, Omega's a Jedi.
All right, we got 3 other Force-sensitive kids over here. Let's start our own little rebel Jedi group.
Yeah,
keep them hidden from the Empire.
I mean, on the Omega flying off into the
sunset. JK.
Sunrise. I can't even remember. I've seen the episode twice and I still can't remember what time that was meant to be.
Early morning, I think.
Then into the sunrise. Let's go with that. Yeah. Have you heard the rumor? I don't know if it is a full-on rumor or whether it's just fans hoping, but a lot of people want one of the characters in the skeleton crew to be Omega. Because the costumes are very similar.
Actually. I don't know, actually. I haven't actually. I forgot about Skeleton Crew, to be honest.
I mean, I've not sort of done a deep dive into what it is or anything, but that's one thing that kept on coming up was, oh, Omega's jacket in the ending is very similar to one of the characters in Skeleton Crew. Is it the same person? And I mean, as annoying as it would be, it kind of would make sense because you never see Omega again. So to have her in this as like the spin-off sequel.
Well, I mean, like I'm looking it up right now. Like we already had the character names. None of them are called Omega. We got Faye, Des, Reggie, and Shanita. So I think it's just rumored, and people just want that, just because. But as we said, like because I don't even know if it's live. Is Skeleton Crew live action or animated? I can't remember.
I think it's live action.
And I'm going to completely erase what I said because I'm looking at the wrong Skeleton Crew. So I listed off characters from a completely different series.
Yeah, okay. Scrap that one all. But
so scrap that one off.
Even still though, even if the character names don't match up, but Omega would probably change her name anyway. Because if she's going out to fight the Empire, you know, for all she knows, there could be more Project Necromancer bases all over the galaxy. So, you know, she's potentially changed her name, but I don't know. It's an awkward one because I hated the ending in the way that they got the happy ending for them, and the Omega flying off and doing all that stuff. And I mean, the fact that we never see the Bad Batch again, but we see them as older, or at least Hunter as an older man at this point.
Yeah.
It kind of makes more sense that, okay, so there's the time skip, that's fine. We don't really need the infill of information to what happened to him. He's probably never left that planet since.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, I'm completely fine with. It's not like Rex or anything where we get more bits of his story throughout other series that he's been in. This, I'm fine with. Omega flying off was a bit more hard to believe because of the fact that we never see her character again.
Right.
You've got to have this character flying off to join the rebellion that, again, you never see again. She wasn't mentioned in Rebels, and I know there's the time difference between when the series were made, but you would have thought that if that was going to be the ending, you'd have at least a contingency plan, which is where I think this whole Omega's in the Skeleton Crew thing has come from.
I don't think so. I just watched the trailer and I don't see what people are talking about. And I really am hoping not, because I feel like she'd have a more important part in the rebellion than just being a Skeleton Crew. Like, I'm even trying to find out exactly the timeline on this.
So one thing that, because I'm just trying to do a dive into this,
but it is live action, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're getting back into like live action things again. As much as I really enjoy the animated side, depending on what it is. I just prefer live action.
So I'm looking at the timeline. This takes place right around the same time as the season 1 of The Mandalorian. So this is 9 years after the Battle of Yavin. But I mean, I do like the idea that Omega left off into the rebellion and just kind of did what a clone that was trained as a soldier would do. And if all that is her just going off into the rebellion and then that's it, I'm cool with that.
I think an ending like that without a spin-off announced just should not exist in anything. Now this is just being
just because it foreshadows a spin-off.
Yeah, and if there then isn't a spin-off, it's kind of like, well, what was the point? Like,
because we have the voice actors. Remember the interview that she said that they decided the route that they're going with Omega isn't what she was hoping, and it potentially is the end of the character.
Yeah, to have Omega flying off into the sunrise, just, I mean, yeah, it's kind of fitting with the character and her evolution and growth, but at the same time, like, we never see Omega again now, like currently, with everything else that we've got. So either,
I mean, arguably everybody said the same thing with Ahsoka, and then she showed up in Rebels, and then now we have an Ahsoka show.
Yeah, no, I get that, but
hey, maybe the next installment that we get for the Tales of will be Tales of the Rebellion, and we'll get some Omega episodes.
I can see that happening. Tales of the, yeah,
because we got Tales of the Jedi, then Tales of the Empire. I could see them doing the next one being Tales of the Rebellion.
Yeah, because it could be sort of. See, this is where it's a very dangerous line, though, because Tales of the Jedi focused on
Ahsoka and Dooku and Qui-Gon.
Yeah, which
and
was
Yaddle,
great.
because answered a huge question everybody had about Yaddle.
Yeah, what annoyed me about the finale of Bad Batch is, there was no inclusion of other characters, which kind of made their inclusion in earlier episodes just kind of pointless.
Mm-hmm. Like Rex, and I thought we were going to see Cody again, but because that's another question that we never really. He just kind of disappeared. I don't know if we got any answers on. Did he meet up with Rex, and did he go off join the rebellion, or the rest of the clones, or did he get executed?
And so there was so many, even Asajj Ventress.
Yeah, pointless.
Yeah, that was. She was there, and then, like, what was the point in having her character there for one episode? Don't make a big deal of it in the trailer, because
only for. Again, I'll go back to what I said in that episode. I think that was just more of a stepping stone to use her in something else. I think that's all it was. Kind of like how we looked at Mandalorian, where a lot of the episodes there were just kind of stepping stones for different things to build up to something different. And so I kind of feel like Asajj Ventress was just more of a character, or her character arc there was just to be introduced in, so we can not have to waste time describing, or don't have to waste time like trying to bring her back in other things that be all surprised.
But you see, I think with that one, that would have been a better payoff if we already knew that there was going to be a Ventress related show.
Correct, yeah. I think it's just opening up for possibilities. Like, I'm not even sure if they know what they're doing with it yet, but it could just be there. Just
it's like a backdoor pilot where
mm-hmm.
if nothing gets greenlit from it, well, all right, we've not lost anything. And I hate it when shows do that. Like Supernatural did it a couple of times.
Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. So many.
When did Supernatural do that?
The best one was an episode called Wayward Sisters.
Okay.
It was basically going to be a female-led, an all-female cast, basically doing.
Oh, it's supposed to be a spin-off.
Yeah, and it was sort of heavily announced and then got cancelled, but the episode still came out, and it was a good episode. It was just like, I hate it when it's meant to lead into something else.
And there's no payoff at the end.
Yeah, kind of like, with Mando season 3, where we end up getting that random episode on Coruscant, which didn't really fit in at the time with anything, because
just to introduce the character later.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I didn't mind the ending, and even if there is nothing else from it, I think it's a good ending for Omega, and we could just kind of assume that she's just going off doing her own thing and being part of the rebellion. Like, I really don't think it's necessary to expect anything more from her. I think it was just a nice ending for her. If she didn't die in Tantus, then I think this was probably the best way they could have ended her character.
Yeah, I think,
and we don't have to hear more about her. She could just be a soldier in the rebellion, and she could just be an average person, or she's just really good at what she does.
I was hoping that you was going to say that, because I have one personal counterpoint to that, which is we've spent 3 seasons watching this kid grow up. There is no way that they're just going to be like, oh yeah, she's in a different part of the galaxy doing rebel stuff, but we don't need to. It's like, dude.
That's how my friend Brecken is when we talk about Ahsoka. I was just like, well, where was she during the rebellion? I'm like, she's just off doing other things. He's like, that's not a good enough answer. I'm like, there's really no other answer I can give you on speculation, because there's really, all we know is she just in the rebellion, or she went to go join the rebellion. So,
but at least with Ahsoka, she was also part of the, she was seen as being part of the rebellion. She wasn't
Fulcrum,
she wasn't fighting as such, in an X-wing. She wasn't planning an attack on the Death Star, but she was there. She was heavily part of it. And I mean, we also forget that she kind of died and then didn't die.
That's true. So we don't know exactly. Well, no, because I remember Dave Filoni when Ahsoka came out, so she could have been gone all that time too, and just came back during the time. Because I know the scene where she goes and picks up Sabine. That's the same scene that we saw at the end of Rebels.
Yeah, I love that, by the way.
I did too.
I know it's depressing, but I think so. Just on that one, to bring it back into like the end of Bad Batch, I think if we had a scene in, even if it was even in Skeleton Crew, like with that part with Omega flying off, or like the minutes after that with Omega flying off, but it's live action, and then she comes across Jude Law's character, and there's like she could be in a couple of episodes of that. I would be happy with that and would accept the ending more. It's just, at the moment, there's no real specific thing that Omega's doing. She's just...
You need more closure.
Yeah. Like, these characters survived so much, and as much as it annoys me that they didn't get the hero's death that they all deserved, like, we then see...
But I'm gonna argue that what they deserved was the peaceful life that they were fighting for the entire show. So I'm not mad that they got that either, though.
Yeah, again, I'll give you that one. It's always a weird one with me, because I look at how the characters should be, how they should end as well.
Well, I agree with you.
They've so to get that peaceful life is good. It's what they deserve. But at the same time, we know, again, from sort of other established Star Wars canon, that every other clone is left on the street. We had that in Obi-Wan. There's a clone begging. So it's like, why did they get that happy ending when, they were defects anyway? they were like this team that was essentially going to be cannon fodder, but it was just they were too good for that. So I think, you know, to have the heroic deaths, you know, that would fit each character, while maybe not the best idea, I think it would have been a better payoff, especially when
Soldier's death.
Yeah, and considering this is the season, not just the season finale, but the series finale. And like I said, that's the one thing that really gets me with this, is that like there was no real stakes at the end of the day. They all survived.
Definitely makes sense. Like, because they're soldiers. Like, the soldier's death is what every good soldier wants. Because, I mean, you look at it this way, you got these soldiers, they're bred for war. And it's in their nature. Like, just, but again, they are the bad bats, so they don't want a normal soldier's life. They know how to do it, but I don't think any, because even looking at Echo and all the other clones, like, do you think they sat down around like Hunter and Crosshair and Wrecker? Even Wrecker, I kind of feel like he still went and did things just because he likes blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
Because I know Echo is still. I assume he stayed involved because he was talking about Senator Chuchi, and he doesn't seem like he's the type that's just going to sit down and just like, okay, let's watch a sunset every day.
Yeah. It goes back to the whole good soldier follows orders. You know, while there's no orders being given, I can't see, especially with the Bad Batch and, you know, what they've had to go through, I just can't see them stopping. Like, that, you know, the rebellion's being built and they're just like, yeah, whatever, we got our happy ending.
So maybe it was Hunter that stayed back with Omega, and the other two are staying involved, and Hunter's just staying back just to watch over Omega.
But then I think that should have been
Crosshair.
Well, maybe Crosshair, yeah, but I also think that should have been a line that should have been said by Hunter at that point. So, like,
yeah,
you know, if you see Wrecker and Crosshair on your travels, tell them that they've always got a home here. You know, something like
just something
that.
simple.
Yeah, that gives you the closure that the characters are still okay, and you know, because that is the thing, is that there was no closure. Like, the characters in the show got closure in the way that, you know, they got to see the sunset every day, but we as watchers of this series have no idea where half of the main characters are now. And it's
right.
Like, I get that, you know, it's like with Ahsoka, that she was in the Clone Wars and then got kicked out of the Jedi Academy, and you know, was told that she's no longer a Jedi. But that kind of, at the time, was closure on Ahsoka's character. You know, she was because again, at the time, we never had her in Revenge of the Sith, which we knew in terms of timeline was very close to the end of the Clone Wars in terms of series. So to have then the additional content of Ahsoka was fine, because it was also set at different times, you know, and that was fine with me. Ahsoka kicked out of being a Jedi, she could do her own thing. This is literally one of the main characters. Now, you know, one of them flies off into space, but that's not, like, we don't know what happened or what happens to her.
I mean, also book opportunities. Get a whole Omega book series. I probably would read it.
Yeah, I think I would too, you know, because as annoying as I found her originally.
However, I read the Jedi Fallen Order books and I couldn't get into it. And I love the games.
Okay.
Because
that's
I think for me, like what's hard with that is like Cal Kestis and all the characters that were introduced there. You're so used to hearing their voice and their personality. And it might even be the same thing with Omega. Like we hear her, but then you get a writer that maybe not watched the series or played the games and only has an idea of how the character thinks and talks, and you don't get an exact representation of that character, and they become a completely different character. And that was my problem with the Fallen Order book.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that again, I think maybe then having Omega in something like Skeleton Crew, which, let's face it, hasn't been widely talked about yet in terms of, like, in fandom circles. So like I say, for me, if it was going to be the happy ending, at least give us closure enough on the characters that if they were to reappear,
they could.
That would be fine.
And I think you're kind of right on this. A lot of the things in this episode did feel rushed.
Which is weird because it was a longer episode. But yeah, I mean, like I say, it a lot of the elements in this just felt rushed and forced and sort of out of nowhere. Was it a good ending to the season for me? If we was to get more Bad Batch, then calling it a season finale instead of the series finale, great. Knowing that it's the end of the series
just didn't stick well.
Yeah, it didn't land. Bearing in mind it was already falling.
That's fair. I see a lot of your points. I did have fun with it because I did kind of keep it as just a normal episode, and it was directed towards kids. I felt like, I don't know, I liked how it ended. I feel like I got the closure I needed. Like, I don't need to know any more about these characters.
I get that, and I can definitely appreciate, not just with yourself, but with anybody that said the ending of Bad Batch was good. I will let them, I'll let people have their own views, because just because mine aren't that doesn't mean that it's not really a good episode. It could still be that I was just too nitpicky on it because of what I wanted from a finale.
So for some of you, kind of had a opposite viewing of an episode. Very fun. But this is the series finale, and it was a very interesting ride, is all I got to say. And while it probably didn't stick the landing for everyone, it had enough, I think, that we can be at least satisfied and maybe know these characters are just doing things. And I think it just might be one of those things where we have to just leave it up to our creative imagination. And so, like I said, fun adventure. And I can't wait to see when the next animated series comes out, because I think the next thing that's going to be out is going to be the Skeleton Crew, and that one's actually live action. And we kind of mentioned it a little bit. So I'm excited to see where we go with that. So, like I said, we're excited for the next projects that are coming out. And I believe at this point it's just Skeleton Crew. And I know we kept saying in previous, I think maybe when we were discussing Mando, we spoke about how we don't know what we were thinking. Acolyte was the next thing, and then Andor season 2. Totally forgot about Skeleton Crew. So we have a few projects that are coming out. Or, well, Acolyte's already been out by this point, but we have 2 more things that'll be coming out, which Skeleton Crew, I believe, should be coming out Christmas time. And do remind you guys, we are recording this in May, right when these shows came out. So for all I know, when I release this recording, it'll be next week or 2 weeks from now. We'll see. But then after that, we got Andor in early 2025. So then Star Wars Celebration, and we'll probably get a lot more projects announced there, which I'm pretty excited for. So guys, until the next time, we will catch you guys later. Catch us next week. And we got some surprise podcasts coming out for you, and it's going to be fun. So before we go, just remember to check the link in the description below where we have tons of cool merch from entertainmentearth.com and also some really cool t-shirts that we got in from designs that we made in our Teespring. And then be sure to follow our social media, jump on Instagram, check out a lot of the cool stuff we post, and then jump in our Discord where you can join other fans and be able to talk Star Wars. So lots of cool things for you guys. So until next time, guys, this is the way.
This is the way.